Welcome to Living the Spiral. This is a place to slow down, take a breath, and listen to the rhythms moving through your life. Here we explore astrology, human design, the I Ching, and elemental ancestral wheels of the year from cultures around the world. These are old maps and living languages that help us sense where we are in time, what is asking to unfold, and how we belong to something far larger than any single moment. In each episode, we trace patterns in the sky and in the body. We weave myth with lived experience, intuition with practice, and the personal with the collective. Living the Spiral is about learning how to move with change instead of pushing against it. About meeting transitions with curiosity, integrating polarities, and remembering that every season carries its own powerful wisdom. When you begin to listen to the cycles, life starts to feel more connected, more meaningful, and more alive. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is Living the Spiral podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to Living the Spiral. It is so nice to be here with you for this full moon in Scorpio. The sun is in Taurus and the moon is opposite in the sky across the axis in Scorpio. And we're celebrating this full moon on Friday, May 1st, which is also the celebration of Beltane or Mayday. And it is actually not astrological Mayday. I just want to get that out of the way really quickly because the astrological cross-quarter day happens when the sun is at exactly 15 degrees of Taurus. And that's not happening this year until May 5th. Mayday, as it's celebrated on May 1st, is the common celebration. It's the same as many of the cross-quarter days are celebrated on the first of the month, even though it does change year by year. So a little technical detail there. It is May Day kind of all the way through from May 1st with this full moon in Scorpio all the way to May 5th. And on Tuesday, May 5th, I am offering a Beltane ritual called Blossoming into Beltane, a Mayday ritual, and it's on Zoom. It is for my paid subscribers on Substack, the Embody the Revolution members, and all of you can get your free ticket with code EMBODY through the link in bio. If you'd like to come and you're not an Embody the Revolution member, you can also buy a ticket. It's $33 for a 2-hour ritual. It's going to include somatic practices, a little bit of vocalization, because Taurus is connected to the throat. We're going to be doing a little bit of creative practices and just learning about the celebration of Beltane from a cross-cultural perspective. So I would love to have you there. It'll be on Tuesday from 5 to 7 Mountain Standard Time. That's May 5th. And we'll celebrate the astronomical Beltane together. But for now, let's jump into the full moon in Scorpio. Oftentimes I'll write a little bit of an outline or a script for these episodes, but I'm feeling a little spunky with Uranus in Gemini and feeling like just going off script a little bit. I'm riffing a bit more, trying to use my voice as I am practicing with reels on Instagram, and it's been quite an edging kind of exercise using my voice in this way without as much control as I'm used to. So thank you for bearing with me as I find my footing in the world of vocalization. I think I've mentioned before in the last podcast with Krista of Practical Astros that I'm in a container called the Magician's Table. That is a container started and ideated by Britton LaRue, who's an astrologer who I love, and I've worked with in various capacities through the years. We've been on each other's podcasts, and I've been in some of her containers. And Britton has started this container called the Magician's Table, where 13 magicians come together every week and share readings with their partners and then reflect and vocalize on the readings. They have 6 or 7 minutes to vocalize feedback and love and glimmers of appreciation about the other person's work. And this idea of vocalizations, I think, is just such a Beltane ritual in and of itself. This idea that we're not just speaking, but that our words are spells and that the vibrations of our voices carry resonance into the world. And Beltane and Taurus season, being ruled by the throat in medical astrology, is all about that vibrational frequency. It's the place where we interact with the world, where we make changes to the world through the power of our voices. So that is what I'm working with right now. I welcome you to try to just, if you don't do this already, if you don't talk to yourself as you're walking around the house, I recommend just doing that. Maybe giving yourself a little voice note or recording a reel that you're never going to post publicly, but just getting freer and more fluid with using your voice. That is a beautiful practice for this full moon in Scorpio. So the full moon in Scorpio is falling in Human Design Gate 44, and that is known as the Gate of Alertness in the Human Design System. And in the I Ching, it's known as Coming to Meet. And so since we're celebrating Beltane and Mayday, this waypoint between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, across the sky from there where the moon is the midway point between the fall equinox and the winter solstice, and that is known as Samhain or Halloween. So Mayday and Halloween, or Beltane and Samhain, are opposite points on the wheel, and that is the axis that's being highlighted by this full moon this week. So before I move on, I invite you just to take a moment to sit with that in and of itself. Every full moon that we experience is a polarity, is an opposition between the sun and the moon across the wheel of the zodiac, across the wheel of the human design mandala. Full moons are mirrors. They are oppositions. They are times for us to think about two different things at once and perhaps integrate them into a larger whole. The axis that represents Beltane and Samhain, the Scorpio-Taurus axis, is the axis of security in the zodiac. It is the axis of material security and sensual security, being safe in our own bodies. Taurus, where the sun is represented by the toddler in the cycle of life. And it's this time when we're discovering the world around us and really figuring out through our senses what the world means and how we can be safe in it. On the other side of the wheel, the Scorpio sign is represented by the stage of intimacy in the wheel of life, which is the time when you are integrating with someone on a deeper level than just surface level. When I think about Scorpio and Taurus as far as the life cycle of a plant, Taurus is the flower. It is the time of year where there are flowers blossoming, everything erupting into bloom in the northern hemisphere. And on the other side of the axis, the Scorpio sign is represented by the time of year when everything is starting to decompose. So it's this axis of the sun in this area that's all about self-individuation and being the blossom, being the flower, sharing your voice. And then on the other side, in the body, Scorpio is represented by the reproductive system. So it really is all about intimacy, about merging with another, about encounters with the other that do go beyond that surface level. And so I do think the Scorpio-Taurus axis, it's the throat and the genitals, is what is represented by this axis. And this full moon is really highlighting that polarity in the sense that both are about security and both are about intimacy. Taurus is about intimacy with ourselves, about self-care and self-love. Like you think about a typical Taurus who just loves their creature comforts and a typical Scorpio who just loves to go deep beneath the surface and get to the bottom of what's really going on. And in human design, the gate 44 is the gate just leading up to Halloween. It's actually usually around Halloween that this gate happens. And then the next gate that it enters after the gate of alertness is the gate of creativity. And the way I look at that, where this moon is gate 44 is all about meeting your demons, meeting the things that are not seen, integrating and getting intimate with the things beneath the surface that have been in the dark for a very long time. The word coming to meet from the I Ching really, to me, reminds me of Halloween, like an old school Halloween, kind of ghosts and goblins all around, and you don't know who's who and what's what, and who's a person and who's a ghoul. And it's this energy of connecting with the spirit realm, in the ancestral realm, in a way that it's unlike any other gate in the I Ching that this comes through. And after you do that, after you reach that place of facing your fears and connecting with and getting intimate with these underworldly qualities, you are then left to your own creativity. You're able to create in a way that you might not have been able to if you hadn't reached that point of integration. And so gate 1 is the Samhain gate. It's one of the 8 holy days in the Wheel of the Year. And across the sky from that is gate 2, the gate of receptivity. So we have 1 in Scorpio, creativity, and 2 in Taurus, receptivity. And that's the axis where the astrological Beltane is happening, is right in the 1 and the 2. But this full moon happening a few days before that is on the axis of the 24 and the 44. So again, 44 is coming to meet, alertness. Stay alert on that Halloween night, ghosts and goblins. But now I'm looking at beautiful purple catmint blooming. I'm looking at wild roses blooming. I'm looking at my trees blowing in the wind with fresh foliage. And it is definitely a season of blooming, of plants being in their full radiant abundance and receptivity. They're open and ready for the bees and the butterflies and the pollinators to come. They're opening their throats. They're opening up their voices and sharing. They are speaking. All of the plants and the animals this time of year are beginning to speak. And people too. I'm noticing it out in the world during Taurus season. The people are starting to own their own value more than they were in experimental Aries season, where everything just felt like too much. Like we're just coming out of the depths of Pisces season, and Aries is like, bah, bah, just like chopping through different blocks. But we reach Taurus season and we're in this more, stereotypically sensual time where people are eating their pie, they're eating their cake, they're taking time to stop and smell the roses. So that's the axis that's represented by this full moon that we are entering, the one that this full moon is falling in. Gate 24 is known as the gate of rationalization, and it is an ajna center gate, a third eye center gate in the human design body graph. And it basically is this energy of your mind kind of going around in loops to try to figure out what is true, what is right. It reminds me of the security that I was mentioning, this desire for security, as if you're a young child trying to get your bearings and you just want to know who to trust. And so the gate 24 is this rationalization where our minds can get addicted to thinking in loops, so trying to figure out all of the answers. But the gift of this energy, where the sun is known as invention. So it goes from the shadow of addiction to mental loops, to the gift of invention. And invention is kind of when you just jump out of the rut of that mental loop, out of the groove that you've gotten stuck in, and move just like a tiny bit to the side. And instead of a circle that you're in, a loop, you're actually now in a spiral where you're starting to think in a new way just based on one small tweak. And sometimes the only way to access that, information, that spiralic energy that is not stuck in a loop, is to be silent. The city of this gate is silence, and it's about taking the time, stopping to smell the roses, and actually being present in that moment to realize that not everything that is true is going to come through your mental patterning. And that's where the full moon in Scorpio really comes in, because the full moon in Scorpio, that gate 44, gate of alertness, is a splenic gate. So the spleen in the body graph is one of the most ancient energy centers, the ancient parts of the body that's all about intuitive awareness, kind of an animal instinct about what's safe and what's not. All of the gates in the spleen center are fear gates in the sense that they represent something that we've needed to be aware of in order to survive. And so this axis is really between full blossoming and receptivity and making sure that we're safe to blossom in our fullness. And then on the other side, it is this alertness that is coming from a more wintry, a more dark time of year where we do have to be more alert in a primal way. I actually, as I was thinking about recording this podcast, I went on Substack and I saw that someone had liked a post of mine from October 30th of last year. It was when I was doing a series called Integrating Polarities, and it was about the axis of the 44 and 24, the Scorpio Taurus axis. It was a series that focused on practicing the art of wholeness through weaving opposites and moving beyond the binary and bridging the divide. So I was writing a transmission every 5 to 6 days, as I currently do on Substack for each gate. But this was not just about one gate, this series that I shelved before I finished the whole year, but it was about the polarity, the integration of these two energies across the wheel. What I wrote was that Scorpio's gate 44 and Taurus's gate 24 form the axis of instinct and reason, riding the line between the body's ancient alertness and the mind's need to make sense of what it perceives. This polarity is the dance between inherited, embodied memory and present insight. Gate 44, where this full moon is the gate of alertness, has the intuitive capacity to recognize patterns from the past and sense who or what can't be trusted and can be trusted. It's a deeply instinctual awareness that surfaces in the moment, warning or welcoming through the body before the mind can explain why. And on the other side of the wheel, where the sun is now, the gate of rationalization, seeks to translate these intuitive flashes into coherent understanding. It's the mental process of returning again and again to an insight until it can be integrated and expressed. So integrating these polarities asks, how do you honor your body's knowing without needing to justify it? And how do you allow the mind to also find meaning without overriding instinct? So it's a beautiful axis here. The gate of alertness, where the full moon is going from the shadow of interference to the gift of teamwork to the city of synarchy. And I really like this because, when we're thinking about our ancestors, for example, and we're thinking about the spirits that are around us, we can think of them as interfering entities, as something that's going to get in our way to our future. The gift level, when we move beyond that fear-based frequency and into the love-based frequency, we recognize that we are working as a team with our past so that we can get to our future. We have to consider everyone that, regardless of their faults, they made decisions that allowed them to survive so that we could exist. And so we are a part of this larger ancestral team. And looking at that as a Scorpio intimacy with the past is a really beautiful practice, I would say. Synarchy is all about co-creation. And so when we don't allow the splenic fear to run our life and keep us locked in old stories where we mistake the ghouls and goblins of the past for what is actually happening in the present, we can welcome whoever comes to meet at the threshold, at the crossroads in this season of darkness. And we can see a collaboration where we can read the energy of groups and relationships with a deep knowing and a deep wisdom from that splenic center. So the moon in gate 44, this Halloween gate, is going to teach us to listen to what moves beneath the surface and honor the invisible guidance that is coming through our ancestors and our memory and the spirits. And then the sun in Beltane's gate 24, is about expressing that ancestral knowing in the here and now, celebrating the flourishing that each and every one of your ancestors had to express in order to get you to where you are today. And so this week I would recommend practicing moving between the two, the deep feeling, the deep sense of memory, and then moving from that into this beautiful unfurling and blossoming of Taurus season. So a little bit about Beltane. We'll definitely go more over Beltane in my upcoming ritual on May 5th, which you should totally join. Link in show notes. Beltane is the first of the fire festivals, the traditional Gaelic festival celebrated on May 1st or on the astrological midpoint day, May 5th. And it really marks the beginning of summer. It's this peak of intense fertility and growth and renewal. And it is traditionally celebrated with bonfires to purify and protect, along with festivities that honor the return of warmth and light. So again, it's this halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. And it's the first of the fire festivals. 2 huge bonfires were historically lit that represented the fires of Bel. Bel was a sun god. And these fires were used for empowering fertility and cleansing, and communities would walk between them or jump over them. And one tradition is that all household hearth fires would be extinguished and then relit from the communal sacred bonfire. And I think that's just such a beautiful tradition of coming to that center point. It really feels like receptivity, the gate where astrological Beltane happens. Gate 2 is all about that centralization, that like all of these roots have worked so hard and all of these sprouts and limbs and legs of plants have worked so hard. And Mayflowers were something that were traditionally used to decorate homes, creating May bushes. It was definitely associated with flowers. And the maypole is another tradition that was celebrated that was about the union of the sun god and the earth goddess. So kind of a fertility symbol of both the land and the people. So today, modern pagans celebrate by dancing around a maypole and continuing to hold that community bonfire. There are traditional foods associated with Beltane, like oatmeal cakes, and it's just really about the celebration of the fertile abundance of nature. So again, it's directly opposite Samhain or Halloween, which is the marker of the start of winter and the darker half of the year. And so it's really an important axis in the wheel of the year. And And this is one of 8 Sabbats or holy days that I'm going to be talking about. And this is one of 8 Sabbats or holy days of the Wheel of the Year that were celebrated by many different ancestral traditions. Just the longest day, the shortest day, the points of the year where the days were and nights were equal, the equinoxes, and then these cross-quarter days were celebrated far and wide. I mean, this is a European tradition, the Wheel of the Year, but I think anywhere you look on the world, there are indicators that the solstices and equinoxes and cross-quarter days were important. They feel just like a living pulse of the earth itself. And so my course that's coming up that I'm going to talk about it for a minute here is called Your Heart is a Compass. And it is really based in the Wheel of the Year and how living through these 8 cross-quarter days and solstices and equinoxes and these holy days is a collective grounding process to attune to the heartbeat of the earth. And in the human design system, which I've studied for a long time, the 8 gates of the G center or the heart center, the center of direction and identity in the body graph, are the same gates as the sun is passing through during the Wheel of the Year. So it's a beautiful correlation. And when I found that out about the connection between the 8 gates of the G and the Wheel of the Year, I was just struck. I was like, this is very cool. There's something really beautiful about this system because it's not just random by any means. The I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, the 64 gates of that are placed around the zodiac, placed around the Wheel of the Year in the human design mandala. In a traditional way, the ordering of the gates was not made up. It's based on the Fuxi sequence of the I Ching, which is the oldest binary sequence of the I Ching. And so they're placed around the wheel of the year so that when the sun passes through certain zodiac signs, it's also passing through these energies of the I Ching. And the fact that the sun passes through these gates that are located in the heart really feels powerful, because the archetypes and the meanings behind these gates energies are all about direction, orientation, love being the underlying force of direction and orientation, a sense of self, a sense of identity. And I think this feels very specifically meaningful to me because my authority in human design is G-center authority, meaning that it's said to be the place where I make decisions from, and I should. And not everybody has this authority. People have different ways of making decisions in the world that serve them. But for me, I really feel like the way that the heartbeat of the earth, this collective pulse of attuning to the threshold of different seasons, when we can tune into that, all of us are having different gates of our hearts lit up in these really connective and collective times of celebration. Part of G-center authority is speaking and hearing yourself speak, and then making meaning out of what you hear coming from your own mouth. It's this connection from the G to the throat. And so since we're in this season of the throat, in Taurus season, and I'm launching a course about the gates of the heart, this feels like a good time to just kind of let it flow through. But the idea for this course came to me earlier this year in January when I was having a very active dream life. I had a cold, and then I had a stomach thing, and then I had to have a tooth extracted. And I was laying in bed, kind of just out of it, a lot of January, and I was dreaming a lot. I was having a ton of downloads and connections. I was taking an ancestral healing course, and so I was deeply immersed in the history of my ancestors and their connection to the Celtic Wheel of the Year and the connection to the Germanic Wheel of the Year, and really thinking about my ancestors and feeling into my ancestors in a way that I never had before. And a dream came through that presented this compass, this heart compass to me, that was this integration of the Wheel of the Year with the heart center gates. And when I looked at the compass as it came through and I painted it, I saw Inanna's star. I saw this 8-pointed star of Inanna. She, this Sumerian goddess from 4000 BC, was also coming to me in my dreams. There was a big initiation into Inanna energy. And to me, that energy was about integrating polarities. She's the goddess of love and war. And she really brings the two together. And she's also the goddess of heaven, but she's also known most famously for her descent into the underworld, where she goes to meet her sister Ishkagul down in the underworld, and she sheds layers of her authority and layers of her ego and layers of her armor from the above world at every gate and every threshold into the underworld. And so as I looked at this 8-pointed star of Inanna and how it related to the cross-quarter days and the solstices and equinoxes of the Wheel of the Year, and how that related to the heart center gates, I just was struck with this beauty of the synarchy between these systems. Truly, this different ways of thinking about descent and return, different ways of thinking about the heart as a place of intelligence, and different ways of thinking about how we can collectively come together during pivotal moments of the year to shed fear and to open our hearts and welcome in that heart wisdom. So it's funny because to me, this just, since I've been thinking about it for several months now, it just feels so congruent and it makes so much sense. The synarchy is like fully woven. The maypole of this system for me feels fully woven into something new. But as I've gone to talk about it and promote it on the internet, and it feels like, whoa, what am I talking about? There's definitely lots of different lines, and like, how do those all connect together? So I'm happy to be able to sit here with you on this Scorpio full moon and riff a little bit about it, because it does relate to that coming to meet kind of energy where, again, I could live in fear of like, well, I don't know if those things should meet up with each other. That shadow again is interference. Like, is bringing too many of these maypole ribbons together going to create an interference where they get tangled up or stop me from being clear about my direction? But when I really think about it, synarchy is such a gift, and teamwork and integration of different paths, like a family tree that's coming from lots of different root lineages into a single trunk. It does feel like the world, in my mind, is in need of synergy and synarchy, and not anarchy. But I do think synarchy is the path of the future. And that's when I look back 6 months ago to this project I started, this integrating polarities, I realized that that is a huge piece of what I desire to bring to my offerings, is a bit of a unique perspective where different threads are coming together. And so we're working with an ancient Sumerian myth, and we're working with a system that brings together the zodiac and the I Ching and the chakra system. And we're working with a calendar that my ancestors used long ago, before I can even trace them back in one of these online ancestry.com. It was before that. It goes way back to that celebration. And I love that so many people nowadays are starting to celebrate Beltane and Imbolc, and they're knowing the words for these and really coming together during certain pivotal seasonal thresholds. It does feel like this return to the earth and these ancient practices of our ancestors is a truly grounding and centering practice in a world that feels very on fire, in a world that feels completely destabilizing, and where we're getting different chaos news bites thrown at us at every single moment. Every time you glance at your phone or talk to another person deeper than surface level, there's something that's coming up that's just like, what? Is that an Onion article headline? Like, no, that doesn't even exist anymore. But like, it almost feels like a cosmic joke, just like how ridiculous so much of what is happening is. And I do believe that that's intentional. The, flooding the zone strategy of just getting everybody overwhelmed, right? And so, I really do believe that a lot of the maps that we've been using for a long time to orient ourselves in the world are being deliberately destroyed, or they're just expiring. They're past their expiration date. And so this compass is not the only way by any means, but it is something that came through in a very clear channel. I'm really excited to be able to offer this for you. I'm offering this course at a really reasonable rate. The early bird registration that's open until the 6th of May is $222 for 5 weeks. And it's also going to include a guided meditation for each one of these 8 thresholds that you can return to throughout the course of the year to ground and center into these holy days energies, into these gates of your heart, into the thresholds of releasing something to be able to gain something much more valuable. And I'm stoked about it. I truly am. So I talk about it at length because it does really tie into this full moon. It's not a little promo aside. It's very integrated in this moment. There's this integration of rationalization, making sense of things through ancestral wisdom and through earth and nature wisdom. And then also just having this splenic knowing of being alert and knowing that we need systems that keep us alert to all of the different types of actors that there are out there that we might come to meet in the playing field of the future. And for me, after having gone through a series of crises and tumultuous events in my life, that I really felt like I was falling and flailing, starting in about 2019, 2018, 2019, all of the time that Uranus was in Taurus, I guess, I really was going through one thing after another of just situations that I never thought I would have to encounter in my life. And I needed to find a sense of grounding that wasn't an external authority. Therapy is great, church is great. There's lots of different ways to seek support. But for me, it was such a consistent sense of insecurity for so long that I really needed to find that grounding within my own body and within the earth. And the earth is something that I found attuning to the different energies, the different seasons really helped me to understand that nothing is permanent and that change is God, change is the only constant. And that felt really nourishing. And I started doing a lot of breath work that was also encouraging my heart to regulate itself in a way that I also now see as just a baseline of existence. Coherent breathing is the type of breath work that I had found that's all about syncing your heart up with the rest of your nervous system and with your body so that you are in a state of resonance or coherence with yourself, the whole system and the world around you. And so at this point, my practices include coherent breathing or resonant breathing, which is a very simple breathing practice you can bring anywhere. I'm addicted to cacao, which is a heart-opening substance from a part of the world that I've spent a lot of time in Central America and had such a beautiful relationship with the cacao plant. And so that's a part of my daily medicine now is cacao and resonant breath and attuning when I can to seasonal wisdoms that are coming through these ancestral traditions that go way, way, way back into the time of the goddesses. Happy full moon. Have a beautiful, rich, deep, connective, ancestral full moon in Scorpio. It's a time to go into the compost and break down the cellular walls between you and your ancestors, between you and other people in your life who you might want to silo out. But recognizing and appreciating that we are all a team. Everyone that you have been impacted by in your life is part of your team in one way or another. And that might not make logical or mental sense, but in your spleen and your gut, it might make a little more sense. So attune to that this full moon. Don't be afraid to go deep. And also don't be afraid to come back to the surface with the wisdom that you've gained and to use it to blossom, to use it to shine, and to speak your truth as loudly as you can. This is the season for that. So with all that being said, I do hope you join me for Your Heart is a Compass. And if you'd like a little sampler of what that's like, the Beltane Ritual is coming up soon on May 5th on Tuesday. So you can sign up for that through the link in the show notes. And feel free to reach out to me at allison@hearthandspiral.com. And I will answer any questions you have about any of it. Thanks for being here on Living the Spiral. Have a beautiful full moon in Scorpio.